Hello everyone. How are you doing? Hope you're doing well. I'm Jesse Peters. I'm the president here at Western Oregon University. Thank you. We're proud to welcome Senator Wyden and Representative Andrea Salinas to our campus to hold a town hall and answer some questions today. Before we get started, first, welcome to our campus. I hope you saw how beautiful it is this time of year. We're going to join each other in the Pledge of Allegiance, if you don't mind standing, and we'll join together for that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. Okay, so I'm going to briefly go over the process because I know we're interested in getting to the questions. If you want to ask the Senator and Congresswoman a question today, you need to have a ticket. They were offered as you came in. If you do not have a ticket right now, please raise your hand if you want one, and the staff will get a ticket to you. All right, so please raise your hand if you'd like to have a ticket and do not have one. In the interest of time, we ask that you keep your question fairly brief. As you can tell from my accent, I'm from the South, and I tend to ramble on when I'm asking questions. So we ask that you sort of get to the point of the question so we can hear the responses from our representatives. Staff has also provided comment cards when you came in. You can write on those cards, and that is an additional way to offer your questions or comments. I'm going to call a few tickets at a time once we get started. Once I call those ticket numbers, it'll be the last 3 digits of the ticket. So again, last 3 digits. I'll call the 2 or 3 of those. When you hear your number, please raise your hand, stand up, and proceed to an aisleway. And then a staff member will get a microphone to you, and then you can ask your question. Once the senator or congresswoman have answered, I'll pull another few tickets and we'll proceed that way so we can keep a flow going. And again, in the interest of time, we ask that you keep the question pretty brief so that we can hear the answer. You know how it goes. Open to all community members at a town hall like this. We appreciate our elected officials coming into our communities to give us time and answers and interact with us. And these only work if we respect each other, listen to each other's comments, listen to the answers, and move on to other discussion points. So please respect the process through the town hall. I would very much appreciate it. So now I'm going to introduce Senator Wyden and Congresswoman Andrea Salinas. First, Senator Wyden. This is the Senator's 1,130th town hall. That's a lot. That's quite a few. This town hall is a part of the commitment he made to Oregonians when he was elected U.S. Senator in 1996, namely to hold an annual town hall in every Oregon county. When Senator Wyden is in Washington, D.C., representing all of us in the United States Senate, he is the ranking member of the Senate Finance Committee and also a member of the Senate Committees on Budget, Intelligence, and Energy and Natural Resources. In Oregon, we know Senator Wyden as a senator that listens, so we want to give that space today to listen to your questions. Congresswoman Andrea Salinas is the proud daughter of a Mexican immigrant, a first-generation American. Her father immigrated to the United States as a child and picked cotton and tomatoes in the fields of the Rio Grande Valley before eventually going on to serve as a police officer. Andrea was born in California and grew up in Pleasant Hill. She was the first person in her family to attend a 4-year university and earned her degree from University of California, Berkeley. Upon graduation, Andrea wanted to serve her community and country, so she chose a path of public service. She served as a U.S. Congressional Aide and Policy Advisor to Senator Harry Reid and Congressman Peter Stark. Later, Andrea moved to Oregon, where she served as District Aide for Congresswoman Darlene Hooley and fell in love with the communities of the Willamette Valley. In 2017, she was appointed to the Oregon House of Representatives and served through the end of her term in 2022. She was elected in 2022 to the first new congressional district in Oregon in 20 years. Andrea is serving on the House Committee on Agriculture and the House Committee on Science, Space, and Technology. Andrea and her husband Chris live in Oregon with their daughter Amelia. So please help me welcome Senator Wyden, Congresswoman Smith.
Well, before we really start to dive in and blather on and hear from you, your questions, we have a little special presentation. Mayor McCardle, on behalf of Senator Wyden and myself, we'd like to welcome you to the stage. So, on behalf of myself and Senator Wyden, we want to thank you for your extraordinary 26 years of leading independence. You really have, your leadership, vision, and dedication have revitalized downtown Independence, strengthened public works, helped build lasting partnerships between Monmouth and Independence, and it will benefit both communities for decades to come. You have built a legacy of what it means to really be a true public servant. And I have learned so much from you, from my days with Darlene Hooley to being a new member of Congress. So thank you for your friendship and partnership. And it is our honor to present you with this flag flown over the United States Capitol in recognition of your leadership and all that you have done and all that you give to this community. So thank you.
What we can tell you is John has moderated many of those 1,130 town hall meetings. This is somebody who always gives democracy a good name. Let's give him a big round of applause. Now, we're going to ask him to say a couple of words as well. John.
Well, thank you, Senator. Thank you, Representative. You know, I didn't do it alone. We did it a team of people in city councils and staff and volunteers and citizens and relationships, everybody working together. Isn't it amazing what you can do when you're all working together? And thank you to all of you for helping make this community great.
Well, thank you and good evening everyone, and thank you all for being here. Before we begin, I do want to thank Western Oregon University for hosting us this evening. I'd also like Senator Wyden and his team for inviting me to join all of you. As you all know, there has been an avalanche of news and information coming from Washington, D.C., and it is not all good. I wish I could say it was otherwise. And so I know you all have a lot of questions, and I want to get to those questions. But before we begin, I just want to give you a little context for the things that I've been doing. For several months, House and Senate Democrats have been sounding the alarm about the Republicans, what I'm calling their big, ugly bill. And unfortunately, we are starting to realize it. They passed it. Donald Trump and congressional Republicans are truly betraying the American people by forcing through a bill that makes Oregonians sicker, hungrier, and poorer. There's no other way around it. And those aren't my words, those are the actual numbers that are coming out of the Congressional Budget Office. This bill is going to cut everything from Medicaid and Medicare to SNAP, while raising energy prices because they don't think wind and solar should be part of our energy mix. It will add about $3.4 trillion to the current deficit. And despite Republicans' promises to lower prices and make life more affordable, this bill will hurt children, seniors, veterans, and families, all to pave the way for a tax cut to billionaires and very large corporations. And when Congress was debating this bill, I offered amendment after amendment, things that could help Oregonians right here and across the West, across the United States, things like addressing wildfires, protecting healthcare access, preserving cost-saving clean energy tax credits, things that the Senator knows very well, and preserving nutrition benefits. I spent a lot of time talking with folks here in Oregon across our district in the Willamette Valley and heard the same thing. We can't take these things away. And so, without any bipartisan input, Republicans passed their bill. They sold out American families and put billionaires' interests over the hardworking people of this great nation. It was nothing short of shameful and cruel. And one of the biggest negative impacts Oregonians will feel from this bill is that cut to SNAP. It serves about 740,000 people, or 1 in 6 Oregonians each month, half of whom are children, seniors, and people with disabilities. I actually did a little tour with Meals on Wheels, who will be affected by this through the Medicaid cuts. And I heard from one woman, Kathy. I walked in and I said, Kathy, I'm just going around, I'm delivering meals, but what does this mean to you? What does your Meals on Wheels delivery mean? And she said, Congresswoman, a year ago, I was about 95 pounds. This woman was my height. And she said, and my doctor told me, if you don't get a meal every day, you are going to die. And I was like, so this is literally a life-saving meal for you. It was her one meal that she could count on every day. And there were many more stories behind this. And so I've been holding, again, roundtables to hear from those food banks and those pantries. And they're not going to be able to absorb what they're absorbing now. We're seeing increases of 30% need up from the pandemic. So more people with the same amount of food. It's going to have to be spread a lot more thin. 1.4 million people rely on the Oregon Health Plan. This is another area that we're going to see extreme cuts. And sadly on this one, when you take $1 trillion out of our healthcare system, whether it's Medicaid, Medicare, wherever it comes from, we will all be impacted. There will be cost shifts. So we have nearly 40 rural hospitals in Oregon, 4 of which are at high risk of closure right now. And this bill will affect all of us, but certainly our rural communities. So I am here to just tell you that I am fighting tooth and nail to make sure that we are adjusting and adapting, and all solutions need to be on the table. But we need to do this together. It is the Oregon way, it's the Oregon spirit, and it's, quite frankly, the American spirit, even if Republicans have hung that up for right now. We'll get back there. And I want to, again, thank you all for being here, and I will pass it to our senior senator.
Thank you, Congresswoman, and we're going to talk a lot about healthcare today, and I thought I'd just pass on a little personal experience that happened not long ago. I had some skin stuff that had to be removed, and I was at OHSU, and they had a terrific doctor who kept bringing in so many staff, PAs and nurses and all the rest, and it's a small building and everybody's kind of wondering what this is all about. So she was particularly concerned and stationing everybody in a certain place and all the rest, and I said to her finally, Doctor, have you ever lost a sitting United States Senator on your operating table? She looked up and said, never one I voted for. So, both the Congresswoman and I are going to have a lot more serious business to talk about with respect to health care, but I just wanted to give you that short account. A lot of people walked away from this health care debate, and they said, it's Medicaid, it's terrible. As the Congresswoman pointed out, people thought it was low-income people. That's just not true. We're a country of 330 million people, and millions more are going to feel like they've been hit by a wrecking ball. And let me tell you when it's going to start. You know, it's August. Around about October or so, you're going to get your notices from your insurance companies. And those insurance companies are not going to be offering the same rates they have in the past. And it's because so many costs are going to get shifted. You don't just take a piece out of the American healthcare system and call it a day. So we feel a lot of our hospitals, I've been having town meetings in rural areas, I think they're going to be closing their doors if we don't get changes in this. I think that we're going to see a lot of changes in the workforce. To give you an idea, we live in southeast Portland. There's a bus stop nearby, and And the British Columbia health authorities are advertising right now at my bus station saying that there are positions available in British Columbia and you aren't going to have any jobs in Oregon and in the United States. So healthcare is the most important issue, folks. I was director of the Grey Panthers for about 7 years. Before I got elected to Congress, had a full head of hair and rugged good looks and all that. But I decided then that healthcare is and was the most important issue. Because if you and your loved ones don't have your health, then everything else falls apart. So we got a lot of work to do on that, and we'll do a thorough discussion of that over the course of the afternoon. One other issue, these tariffs, I think, are hitting Oregon's small businesses like a wrecking ball. The Congresswoman and I just went to a session. The tariffs, even though the Trump people won't use the word, are taxes. Repeat, taxes. And the reality is, the #1 issue in the '24 election was costs. Healthcare costs, energy costs, small business costs. And with these tariffs, they're just adding to the costs. I don't know if you caught the blurb this morning. Inflation went up in last month, in July. So these are not issues that we can ignore any longer, and we're going to be back in Washington in September, and we want you to give us a jump start. And the last point I want to make is just a personal thank you. I'm looking out right now at the faces of democracy. This is what makes America so special. On a pretty summer night, there are a lot of things you could do besides educating us. So thank you for doing it. Let's make sure that people get heard. Oregon's at its best when everybody is heard. Don't feel that if we have a difference of opinion that you shouldn't speak out. My wife often calls me at 11 o'clock after a 9:30 vote and said, "You blew that one, Buster. It was a bad vote." So the Congresswoman and I are here to listen. Thanks for being here.
All right. I think the senator and representative are going to be on the stools there. I'm going to call 3 numbers, last 3 numbers, and then please go, as we said, go to the aisleway to have a staff member get you a microphone. First one is 014, 014. The second one is 111. And number 3 in the first round is 012. So please raise your hand and then go to the aisle so the staff can locate you. Let's see, all 3 hands are raised. And when you state your question, please give us your number first so I can check it off. Thank you.
We have 014 right here.
Oh, thank you. 6 months ago into President Donald Trump's second term, his administration is at war with federal judges. He's evading court orders, blocking his agenda, suing judges for alleged misconduct, and veering toward what some say could turn into a constitutional crisis. So I'm very worried about this. And I want to know what you guys can do to help us.
I am equally worried about this. This to me feels like a constitutional crisis, absolutely. And what I have been telling folks is, there are about 4 things that, as a member of Congress, in terms of broad strokes, that I feel like I can do from the House side. Everybody knows we're in a super minority.
Wait another minute.
But what we can do are the things that the Constitution has given us rights to do, right? So we can legislate. That's the obvious one. We can litigate. I've signed on to amicus briefs that even our own Dan Rayfield, the Attorney General, has led on some of these lawsuits. We can communicate, and we are communicating constantly, and whether it's communicating at the state level on immigration and ICE and making sure that people know their rights, making sure that the press knows what the facts are, making sure that our constituents are hearing from us. And then the last thing that I say, and I say to constituents, we can agitate, right? We can make sure that we are trying to hold these agencies accountable, letting them know that it's not okay to just come into the Willamette Valley and close our Social Security offices. It's not okay when somebody needs healthcare access and they're on the phone for 2+ hours and then they never get anybody at the other end of the line. All of these are very harmful and hurtful. But seeing and going to some of these No Kings rallies and standing up for science, right? What are we going to do when they continue to cut NIH and some of our science programs? I serve on the Science, Space, and Technology Committee, and it is one of the most bipartisan committees on the House side. Yet there's this cognitive dissonance. We do all this bipartisan work, and at the same time, I have to call out my colleagues, you're rolling back on science. Your president is denying science. You can't have it both ways. You can't push the next, I'm on basically a bill to regulate the mRNA gene and how we use it in science. And now he's rolling back any of the progress that we might be making in this area. None of it makes sense. And I'm like, why are you, when you're in front of me, in front of this very bipartisan committee, trying to act like you're actually executing on behalf of your constituents, then you go behind closed doors and you're going to capitulate to the White House? None of this makes sense, and it is causing whiplash. But I'm just going to continue to call it out and let their constituents also know that they're not standing up for them.
I'm really glad you started with that question, because this question goes right to the heart of the rule of law in America. And remember what we've been seeing on television just in the last 24 hours and what's going on in Washington, D.C. In Washington, D.C., they're pointing out that crime has gone down. They brought up all these solid studies. And the Trump administration, without any evidence to contradict it, now has federal crime officers walking the streets. And I think that this is really ominous stuff, folks. My parents fled the Nazis in the 30s, not all got out. My dad was one of the famous Ritchie boys, the German kids who talked their way into the army to drop propaganda pamphlets on Hitler. And we learned in the Wyden household, you gotta push back every single day. Sometimes you hear from a friend, I can't take it anymore, I'm moving away, I'm going to Brazil, I'm going to Switzerland. We can't have people going away who are good people who are going to fight against these practices that take our neighbors off the streets and just ship them somewhere without any evidence of rights. I'm going after Doge right now. Anybody know what Doge is? What a ripoff! This place is the Fort Knox of your private data. The Fort Knox of your private data, and we don't have any controls over it. So I just ask in response to your question, we've got to be whistleblowers, every one of us, constantly pushing back, arguing about that we're not going to sit there and have our rights taken away. And we know that the Trump people pay attention to these kinds of things. When they see they've gone too far, then they take it back in. But if you don't fight it, they'll take the next step. And I wrote a book over the last couple of years. It's called It Takes Chutzpah. Chutzpah is the Yiddish word for grit and determination. Let's have the grit and determination to say no to the authoritarian practices we're seeing in our country.
We have 012.
Okay, thank you.
My question is, I'm a little concerned about this meeting with Putin and President Trump in Alaska. There's been talk about him giving some of our mineral rights away to Russia to help them, and it's got me really concerned. The same thing with China. I'm concerned about China. They're talking about him giving our little disc away to help them. So that's my question. So what can we do about that to stop him? Because technically, he can, if he goes in Alaska, wouldn't he be, couldn't we arrest him?
Yeah.
Okay, that's my point.
ideological for Washington, D.C. I am Oregon's guy on the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, and I'm actually the longest serving member at this point. My older child often calls up and says, "Hi, Dad, how's it going? What can you tell me about the so-called Intelligence Committee?" And here's the point. We know the basic parameters of this. When Trump goes to these meetings, he knows that Putin is going to push him very hard. And you got to be worried on the basis of the past record that Putin pushes him in directions that are not good for the American people. That's what we know. Now, Trump can wake up and suddenly have a whim and do something different, but I'm very concerned for the reasons the gentleman talked about. If he decides that he's going to kind of go through the motions of some sort of land exchange with Putin, Putin will clobber Zelensky on something like that. It'll be brutal. So my hope is that he's going to hold the line, let Putin say his piece. That's the way these things work, and maybe something is going on that I don't know about. But I don't like the sounds of this, and if Zelensky was there and there were parameters that would protect American interests that were being discussed, I'd feel differently. But I've watched too often Putin go into these things, and he takes the debate right away to the issue of security and convinces everybody the only security is his approach, which is not right, and the world suffers, and the American people suffer.
The problem with these meetings, with these rogue foreign dictators with Trump, is that his measurement of success is, did that person like me when I walked out of the room? And personal gain is his objective. And once the American people wake up and recognize that this is not the guy who's going to bat for us, it is for himself. And it worries me as well when he is in this room that those will be the metrics that he uses. And so what I keep saying is, let's make sure that every single Republican, Democratic, Independent, I don't care what the districts look like, understand the motivation of this guy. It's not for us, it's for him.
We have one.
We saw how Zelensky was treated last time, and that supports what the Congresswoman is talking about.
Testing. Here you go.
Okay. All right. Hi. It's nice to see you guys again. I'm Kay Graven, and I'm here as an advocate.
In much of the country, the Republicans won't even have a town meeting.
Oh, I know. That's why I'm impressed that you're here. I'm here with the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network as an advocate. We are alarmed at the cuts that are going on to the NIH, the CDC, and the NCI. I lost my dad to cancer in 2004, lifetime smoker. One of my specific concerns is the Office of Smoking and Health, which apparently is on the chopping block, and it has done so much to decrease the use of tobacco in our country. It is still the most preventable way to prevent cancer is to stop smoking. So I would just like to know what your feelings about the future of cancer research and service to patients are. I want to thank you both for supporting legislation that we have offered up to support our cancer patients and families.
Thank you for that question. I don't know if folks heard today, I'm sure you heard, Senator, and I got a call from OHSU earlier this morning that Phil and Penny Knight are putting $2 billion towards the Knight Cancer Research Center, which is just so impressive. And I'm grateful. It is going to put Oregon on the map in terms of cancer research in a real way, but I wish it did not take private money because, yes, it shouldn't take private money. And the House recognized that. The House absolutely recognized that. And I will just tell you a quick story about my colleague, Jim McGovern, who is a member who serves as the ranking member on the Rules Committee, right? The Rules Committee decides what amendments get taken up and what amendments get knocked down. And like I was saying, so many of my amendments did not even get considered for debate or to be voted on as we were passing this big ugly bill. It was the wee hours of the morning and I'm, sitting there at 3 a.m. Am I gonna get to go, debate on my bill? No, that didn't happen. But Jim McGovern, he's the ranking member, he was in the room, and his very last amendment that he brought forward was to bolster NIH and cancer research funding. He lost his daughter, his 23-year-old daughter, to cancer in Italy this summer. She collapsed and she died right then and there. And it was a cancer that they had been that they've been battling for years. And it wasn't a lot more being asked for in this amendment, and the Republicans shot it down, even with a personal story as grave as that. He lost his young daughter. So I'm thankful to the Knights, but we have to get this back. And cancer knows no boundaries, no political boundaries. All Republicans, all Democrats should be fighting for this.
The other part of the good news today is that Brian Drucker, who is really the Damian Lillard and LeBron James of fighting cancer, has gone back to head the program. And so this is a historic bit, of good news. Now, I very much share the Congresswoman's views too about, health care being a priority and a public good. That's how I call it, a public good. We have a big decision coming up, and I can't believe the Republicans in the country and the Congress are going to look the other way. But I'm concerned that kids aren't going to get vaccinated for measles. I think that's what's going to happen unless we fight it and we push it. Now, I'm the ranking Democrat on the Senate Finance Committee. We had Robert Kennedy for confirmation, and he just lied. Plain, simple lied. At one point, I read him documents that said that if he could do it again, he wouldn't have had his kids vaccinated. And I read it to him. He said, that's a big lie. And he started screaming. But we're going to have a big public health fight coming up again, because the prospect of kids not getting vaccinated for measles and going to school and giving other kids the disease and home folks as a result of those kinds of practices is huge stakes. And I am not going to have it on my watch as the point person for the Senate Democrats to let that go. You got a pledge tonight. I am going to fight Robert Kennedy with everything I got to make sure the kids aren't going to grow up sick.
All right, we're moving into the next group of 3 questions. I'm going to again announce the last 3 numbers on the ticket. First, let me say I appreciate the flow of the questions. You're asking them in a really good, timely manner. We appreciate it. So 095, 065, and 085. So 095, 065, 085. If you come to the aisle, identify yourself as staff.
First, I just wanted to say I very much appreciate your support of American citizens. As many people in this room are aware, right now there is a genocide happening in Palestine. Both of you are recipients of AIPAC funding. Ron, you've received over $1.2 million. Andrea, over $200,000. I would love to hear, what are you going to do to stop the genocide that Israel is currently excising on the people of Palestine? And will you stop receiving funding from AIPAC, who is very much not aligned with the views of America of liberty and justice for all people, right? Let's expand that American idea to the people of Palestine and be protectors of women and children and all people there that are currently suffering, experiencing famine and starvation at the hands of Israelis who are not allowing aid to come into their country right now as we speak.
Very important question, and it deserves a serious answer. I think it's clear that what we see coming over our phones at night is starvation. The suffering in Gaza has to end. It must end, period. So let me talk to you a little bit about my view of how we go about doing it. First, Bibi Netanyahu bears substantial responsibility for this. And yes, folks, let me finish this and we're going to continue the discussion because I think it's... As soon as I'm done with this, we'll continue. Okay.
Let the senator talk, please.
Bibi Netanyahu does not have the right to think only about himself and to have the right to take over Gaza. So what I have been working on is an effort to change the circumstances on the ground, the circumstances that cause so many children to suffer. And in particular, what I'm looking at doing is sanctions on Israeli officials who've worsened the situation in Gaza. In other words, if you are an official of Israel and you've worsened the situation in Gaza, which I believe Bibi Netanyahu has done, I think there ought to be sanctions. And I'll have more. I'll have more to say about that pretty shortly. Now, with respect to Israel, Israel does have a need to defend itself from Iran and its proxies.
Okay, please, can we give the senator a chance to respond to the question, and then we can ask other questions.
The gentleman in the front, who's got his right to his opinion, said Israel doesn't have a right to defend itself. Respectfully, I believe it does. I believe in a two-state solution, which I think if we start a tough program that provides real penalties and sanctions for what's going on, the abuses in Gaza, we can change the direction of what's going on the ground. That's what I'm working on.
So thank you for your question. This has been an issue that is incredibly hurtful. I mean, I am a mom, and what I am seeing right now should not be happening. People who are starving are being murdered as they are trying to get food. That should not be happening.
Then speak up in the Congress!
I have written letters to our own administration. I have written letters to the Israeli ambassador to the United States, basically spelling out my view of what is going on here. I think, to the senator's point, Benjamin Netanyahu is continuing this ongoing war because he is avoiding his own persecution and potential, being locked in jail. What we need to do, though, and I've said this to AIPAC, and I have said this to Muslim Education Trust, I've said this to others, we need Israel to be able to help the Palestinians get the food and humanitarian aid that they need right now. And that is not happening, and that has been made very clear. Do the Israelis and the Jewish people deserve to defend itself? Yes. Should we be sending them arms that are actually harming? No. That is the answer. And so, no, they did not. They gave me $67,000 from individuals. So there are letters that I've sent. There are also bills I have signed onto with my colleagues that have actually asked for certain metrics to be met. We need to I do not think the Palestinians should be moved out of Gaza right now. This is incredibly harmful and will not ever get us to a two-state solution. I have written letters on what is happening in the West Bank. I have been to the West Bank, I have seen what is going on, and it is horrific. And so I am trying to work within a Republican establishment right now on the House side that is not seeing things the same way. But I just signed on to, again, another bill that essentially will put some items in place that will say, we need to make sure that people are being protected in the West Bank, and this cannot continue. So that is where I am on this issue. This is where I think that the US can get there. I do not want to see any more offensive arms sent to Israel, but Jewish people do need to protect themselves.
Just so I'm clear, I'm on the Intelligence Committee. I'm a senior member of the committee, and I'm committed, and you can offer me ideas as well to change the situation on the ground. The provision I'm talking about right now, tough penalties for people like Netanyahu who engage in abusive activities in Gaza would be sanctions. There'd be consequences. I think this would have a chance to change the situation on the ground. I'm interested in that. I'd be interested in your ideas as well, and we can continue this through the meeting. Go ahead.
All right, so we're going to the next question. Do we have either 095 or 085?
Oh, here we go. We have 085 here.
And just so we cover one point that we hear in the front, the Congresswoman and I have both championed steps to make it easier to get the food into Gaza. This is immoral, what is going on there. We oppose it.
All right, let's hear from 085, please.
I want the
to
Epstein
stop the
files.
town hall, so let's hear the question.
United States committed atrocities every single day. The greatest purveyor of violence in the world today is the United States government. That was Martin Luther King.
Okay, next question, please. Next question. Next question.
Every day we committed atrocities.
I want the Epstein files. I want to never forget about that. Our president is a sexual predator, and he was best friends with a sexual predator, and he has broken the law so many times it's unbelievable. I want to fight for women.
I cannot agree more. And so I have been and I did not want to I don't normally try to get into the ugly fray of some of the politics. I try to keep it pretty, clean. I'm a policy geek. But I had to say something, because this was about children at one point that we are not protecting. These are about vulnerable women now who've been through a lot of trauma. And I have been very vocal now, basically saying, I don't care if it's a Democrat, a Republican, an independent. If you are part of this, you need to be called out. This is unacceptable.
I have led a 3-year investigation into Jeffrey Epstein. Let me tell you a bit about where we are. Recently, I went to the floor of the United States Senate, and I pointed out that my investigators have found more than 7,000 wire transfers from Jeffrey Epstein through just one bank that were used for his global sexual privilege network around the world. And the real issue for all of us as Americans is, why won't the Trump people look at the documents that I presented to the Treasury Department? They show that the banks took a pass they were supposed to warn. They show that other regulators were sleepwalking. They show that Epstein's henchmen are still out there. So this is fundamentally about a rigged political system. Do the powerful get away with this sort of thing, or don't they? And I am going to stay at this. I said on the floor the other day, this is not a red issue, it's not a blue issue. This is a question of whether or not we're going to allow this to happen to women again in the United States. And that's what my investigation is all about. We're going to stay at it until we make the kinds of changes so it doesn't.
We have, I don't believe 095 was identified, so we'll move to another 3. 149, 035, and 062. Any of those numbers are in the room? We have one more left.
We have 149 right here.
So I'm wondering how your town halls are going in the other part of our states that are red. And if people are showing up, but they're asking you if they believe what you're saying about the problems we're having and the movement toward fascism and how we're locking up children and parents in cages. I mean, I am so appalled I can hardly talk without crying, right? I don't understand what's happening in our country, and I don't understand what it must be like. My other part of the question is to be in the middle of this in DC with just feeling like there's no rules anymore. And so I'm just wondering how the rest of our state is responding.
Sure, I will start. So it feels like there's a huge disconnect, right? I'm only in my second term. I came in as a freshman in 2022. It was my first term. And for somebody who was in the minority in the House, I felt like I had a pretty successful session. I got a bill passed for the Grand Ronde Tribe to allow them to pursue land claims rights, something they had been prohibited from doing for decades. Thank you. I was able to get some bipartisan work done in the Science, Space, and Technology Committee. I got some great things included in the Farm Bill. I couldn't ultimately vote for it because of the cuts and rollbacks to the nutrition programs, but I was able to influence some real pieces of legislation. And I did it by reaching across the aisle. Again, I was in the minority then, and I'm in the minority again. And this time, it feels different because there is either this cognitive dissonance where the Republicans just are not understanding and seeing the reality, and again, their willingness to abdicate their constitutional authority to legislate, and they're handing it over to the executive branch. We no longer have this equal, co-equal branch of government that is being led by the people who can lead it. So it's very disconcerting because I feel like we're no longer even playing with the same frame of mind that we had been playing with as a freshman member who could just meet people where they were and really say okay, so what's going on in your state? Where can we meet? Where's the common ground? What's happening in Nebraska? Don Bacon, who's actually now stepping down because he was one of those reasonable guys, but he's stepping down because I think he sees the writing on the wall and he's like, I can't do this anymore. And and where can we meet? This isn't happening right now. It's really, really difficult because they're not even stepping up for their own constituents. And that's why part of my tactic has been, how can we ensure that their constituents and the people who are either going to vote for them or vote them out know what they're doing? Because what they're saying is not. What they're saying on their Facebook pages and their Twitter accounts and and X and Instagram is not what they're doing and how they're voting. So they are not standing up for their constituents either. They're only standing up for Donald Trump. And it is infuriating because I'm here for you, not for anybody else.
The reason that I'm putting 3 investigators on this Epstein matter, which I've had for 3 years, is I think it highlights what you're talking about. People think the system is rigged. And the reason we're here having this town meeting is because this allows us to chip away a little bit at the skepticism, because you've got 2 members of Congress, and we're answering real questions, and we don't have teleprompters and the like. But I will tell you that the Trump people are covering up more than $1 billion in suspicious transactions. I mentioned the 4,700 wire transfers. And young women and girls are mentioned in this. Jeffrey Epstein was a substitute high school teacher, and he ended up in his last days being a billionaire. He didn't get to be a billionaire by osmosis. He ripped off the tax laws. He pretended that he was a great authority on taxes. It was nonsense. And the reason I'm staying with it is that I think your very good question is all about we the people. We the people don't get away with this stuff. But in a rigged society, when you have money and you can do these things, people look the other way. I'm going to stay with it until all the facts come out and you can see how we're going to finally fix a rigged system.
We have 035.
Thanks.
First of all, thank you so much for continuing to battle against something that has no justice for the people that are involved. But for me, going to a protest is about all I can do except vote. But I get constantly, give us money, give us money, give us money. And I don't know what that will do when you're fighting against a black wall. So what can we do?
What we're going to do, the 2 of us, and I think the vote will come up sooner rather than later, is end the corrupt campaign finance law known as Citizens United. It's got to go. And so you know why it's got to go is the Supreme Court has basically come up with an absurd analysis. They have said that the rich guy's checkbook is the same thing as the poor guy's soapbox. And it's all just a big First Amendment, right. That's nonsense. The poor guy's, soapbox isn't worth much, and the rich guy's checkbook can buy everything. So we're committed to doing that. And I will tell you, I believe once we pass Citizens United, we'll start having more town hall meetings in other parts of the country, because people will have to talk to their constituents rather than their contributors.
Do we have 062 now? Okay.
We have 062 right here.
Hi, my name is Jean, and it's perhaps a continuation of her question. I don't know about, I'm hearing lots of things from lots of people, so I think most of us know what the problems are. And as well, I protest, I show up, I belong to democratic organizations, as well as several others. And every day I have to look at my kids and say, I'm sorry. Because this is shit. I've called both of your offices. I appreciate that there's been responses. And I do appreciate the work you're doing. I truly do. I worked in public service myself for many years, just retired. I want information. I want to know what we can do.
Sure. So that communication piece that I was talking about earlier, right? I said legislate, litigate, communicate, and agitate. And this was a town hall that I did, it was raining, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 months ago, whenever the rainy season, before the rainy season ended, in Tualatin. And I mentioned that communication piece. And here's where Trump and I think Republicans are going wrong on this. They are underestimating their constituents. I don't underestimate our community. You are all smart people. You are all hardworking people. You all have your own stories to bear and to bring to light. And I've asked people, you know, whether you have been someone who works in the home and stays home for the last 40 years raising your kids, or whether you were out in, one of the union halls, or, working on transportation projects. It doesn't matter what you've done in your lifetime. Law enforcement, professional attorney, whatever your trade or whatever you've done, the experience that you've garnered means something. And it means something to other people because it is impacting the laws that the Republicans are passing right now, that Trump is pushing on all of us, is affecting all of us. If you're not well off and well connected, you're being ignored right now. That's not okay. And you have voice. And you can write. You can write to the editor here, Salem Reporter, great, let them know. Opinion pieces, great. Any of the, local Monmouth, whatever. If there are newsletters that you can get into. I was really surprised. So at the Tualatin Town Hall, one of my nurses came back and she just showed me 2 weeks ago. She got an op-ed placed in a South Carolina newspaper. She got an op-ed placed in the Eastern Oregonian talking about those terrible healthcare cuts that Cliff Bentz voted for when 40% of his population is on the Oregon health plan. And then she got a letter to the editor placed in USA Today. So use your voice, make sure it's heard across this country. Yes, call our offices, of course, we always want to hear from you, right? But if you feel like you are preaching to the choir, you might be preaching to the choir. I still want to hear from you. But you can use your voice across this country because again, you're not alone when you're going to write to that other newspaper where some Republicans are finally going to start to wake up and understand that they're being ignored because they're not well off and well connected either.
And if I could choose one word in addition to the Congresswoman's good answer, it's be a whistleblower. More than anything, when you see some kind of abuse, like you see something going on with ICE, let us know. If you see a ripoff on prescription drugs, which are rampant, let us know. It's our job to follow them up. I have these investigators because I put more emphasis on whistleblowing than almost anything else. Because it's one thing to try to write a new law and wait and see what happens. But those whistleblowers, 3 of them are young investigators who are putting in long hours, and they're committed to making sure that we end a rigged system and blow the whistle on Jeffrey Epstein. And wait till you see some of the names that are involved in this, folks. This is going to take your breath away. The question was, can you leak it? Let me tell you. Let me give you a very blunt answer. So, the way we got the files is after a lot of work, the Biden people showed them to us. They're a special class of document. It's called a SARS. Nobody is allowed to talk about it. But what we did when we left the office that day, we immediately went to the Republicans and said, this is hair on fire stuff. Will you help us issue a subpoena? If we had been able to issue a subpoena when that happened, you'd know a lot about the story right now. We weren't able to get it. We're staying with it. And in particular, we'll have more to say this week. I've already made a documentary that's online. You've seen some of the stuff, I'm sure. But we are not going to rest until the American people have seen exactly what you're asking for.
All right, we're moving to our next group of 3. Last 3 numbers, 086, 015, and 053. Let me repeat that. 086, 015, 053. Please identify yourself. We're here for those 3 people. Numbers again, 086, 015, 053. Do we have anyone in that group?
No, we got one, right?
We have one. I'll get to this room.
We got 053 right.
All right.
Hi, talk to us about gerrymandering. Democrats have tended to play by the rules. Republicans have pushed all the rules beyond the end of those rules. And there's a real debate within Democrats right now about, do we continue to push to play by the rules, or do we fight back with the same kinds of pushing that is happening in Texas?
I don't know about Senate Democrats, but there's no debate with House Democrats. Gloves are off. We're fighting fire with fire. I don't know if folks are following what's happening in California. I missed the meeting because we were in a tariff meeting, but our Democrats are meeting and talking about what we can get out of California. I don't necessarily know. I mean, they're going to do tit for tat, I think, all over the country, right? They're starting with Texas. It sounds like they're going to Missouri next. They'll probably try Indiana and Florida. And we are starting to think about this nationwide as well. And, we had a meeting earlier this week with Eric Holder, who had been part of the bigger, larger, redistricting for the U.S. In our last census reapportionment, when we all did it, well, most of us did it legally and appropriately and constitutionally. But no, the gloves are off. We cannot fight this constitutional crisis right now and play by their rules. We have to play by our own.
It's a House. It is a House issue, and I'm still with her every step of the way. We'll be fighting for her.
We have 015.
All right, 015.
Like everyone, I was very concerned about Trump winning, but I've just been appalled at what's happened. And it sounds good, get rid of Citizens United and all that, but seeing how one individual can grab the power and do it, you can get rid of it, the next person come in and bring it back. But it just seems like the whole system, I mean, the Electoral College, the Supreme Court with no limits, now it's going on with Texas, and then California hasn't come back. I mean, it's unending. It's broken. It's all pure and simple. It's broken, and something has to be done on that. And I don't know what, but I just cannot see any long relief. I mean, it'd be great if the Democrats sweep everything, but then sooner or later the pendulum will go back. So.
You've got two United States Congress people with you right here. And we're here because we agree with what you're talking about. This is contrary to everything the Founding Fathers had in mind. And we are going to every nook and cranny to make that case. About 10 days ago, I spent 5 days in rural Oregon, where Donald Trump got 70% of the vote in most of it. My wife said there aren't very many people, there are a lot of animals and stuff. And then she paused and said, the animals aren't with you either. But you know what I talked about? I talked about the health legislation that the Congresswoman and I are talking about. And as I got into it, heads started nodding, sir. They felt that one of the reasons they came to rural Oregon, it's a beautiful place, and we're trying to protect the Owahis and the like, but they never thought that they were going to lose access to health care this way. And nobody explained it to them. And they were stunned that I, as somebody who lives in Southeast Portland, was going to take the time to show up and tell them. And the reason why is because of what the Congresswoman and I are doing today, which is trying to involve Oregonians at every nook and cranny. Every nook and cranny, because this stuff, just as you say, is grotesquely wrong. I'm a first-generation Jewish kid. I never thought that we would see these kind of violations of our freedom. And I want to see processes and changes that are democratic to bring the rule of law back. That's why we're doing these meetings. We're doing these meetings in places where people haven't voted for a Democrat in ages. And we're doing it because I promised it. I said I'll be in every county every year, 1,130 times. And that's because we believe in the kind of government you want. And we're not able to say we're getting it all tonight, but we're going to stay at it until we get exactly the kind of values you talked about. Let's give him a round of applause.
So I keep saying we need to meet people where they are, right? And right now, the Trump administration, to the senator's point about being out in Eastern Oregon where, Trump got 70% of the vote. Has anybody ever been out to Adrian and talked with the folks out there? Yeah, so have I. And the last time I was out there, the superintendent of the Adrian school district basically told me when a teacher calls in sick and we need a substitute, I'm the substitute. How do you think that Adrian school district is feeling right now with these threats and cuts to education? And again, not to mention that 40% of Cliff Bence's district relies on the Oregon Health Plan. All of this is coming to bear. My growers here in the Willamette Valley were not happy when those U.S. Department of Agriculture grants they were waiting for their bank account to see those funds in there were suddenly stopped because of Doge. This wasn't Trump meeting his voters, the people who actually voted for him. He wasn't even meeting them where they were. That's why you saw that viral video with Cliff and all those ranchers who are pissed. They're so angry right now because they're feeling duped. And so am I. And I say that I've said this in McMinnville, I said this in Polk County before. There are people in this room who may never vote for me and did not vote for me the last time, but I'm still fighting for you. Trump is not. He is not. Let's just get that straight and let's understand what that looks like. It means he's not actually trying to make things right by specialty crops here in the Willamette Valley. He does not care. And so getting that message out, letting people know about this is really, really important. And that is part of our job. And also reminding my colleagues, so having these conversations with my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, what are you doing, Cliff? I know I used to work with you when you were in the legislature. We could meet eye to eye on some of these things. And it's just, it has all been thrown out the window. So thank you. I think you are absolutely right. And I said to a group of folks at the Woodburn Rotary today, it also scares me because this sets a really bad precedent for what this could mean for any subsequent administrations, right? This is not what our founding fathers had in mind with the separation of powers. And I would hate to see a Democrat go in there with a bulldozer and a chainsaw or whatever else kind of Doge thing they want to do. It sets a very, very dangerous precedent that he has just unleashed. And so, but where I find hope is we have to admit things have been broken. And there are clearly loopholes that people can get around. Let's collectively figure out how we now make it better.
I can feel all the emotion in this room. I can feel it. And it's such a scary time. And I cannot believe that Trump has been able to be allowed to get away with everything that he's gotten away with. And that we're always having to watch all these atrocities. And I have the same question, like, what can we do? I feel like a lot of the Trump supporters out there are somehow able to just kind of look the other way or make excuses, and they still all believe everything that he's saying. So it's a very, very scary time. It's throwing me off this echo. So I don't know if you can answer my question or not, but I did also want to say that just staying informed, and one of the really good investigative reporters on YouTube is the Midas Touch, M-E-I-D-A-S Touch. And just watching those videos and kind of spreading that word, I think is really good, and it's opened a lot of eyes. Thank you.
And your point is spot on, and Trump has given us the opportunities. How many of you have been following this crypto debate? Yeah. So I came to the conclusion early on that particularly blockchain, which would give us a chance to get at some of these middlemen who rip everybody off, was worth pursuing. But I don't know if you've followed what's gone on the last 6 months. Donald Trump took office in January and had basically no money at all. And now he's worth hundreds of millions of dollars because all this money is sloshing through crypto into his bank accounts. Now, when the American people find out about this, they're going to say, this is not part of the value system that we want in America. The gentleman over there, when he was talking about how he was angry about what we're seeing, is really fundamentally talking about values. He's not just talking about bills and amendments. He's talking about values that he grew up with, that were all about ensuring, for example, fairness. So I'm the tax guy. You want to hear about the lack of fairness in taxes? If you're a billionaire with 3 words, you can pay little or no taxes for years on end. All you have to do is buy, borrow, and die. You do those 3 things, and everybody here who works for a living and pays payroll taxes on every paycheck pays and pays and pays, and this guy pays nothing. Well, let me tell you what we're going to do as part of the Social Security reform coming up, because they don't pay into Social Security because they don't take any income. I'm going to say that's got to change, because that man over there wants to see some fairness. Everybody paying into Social Security is fairness, not giving billionaires a break.
All right, so we have time for 2 more questions, and these are the final 2 numbers. 018, if you're here, and 126. So if those 2 numbers could raise their hands. 018, 126. If staff's not seeing those folks, I'll continue. No? All right, we'll go to 045. There's 045.
We have 045 right here.
All right, thank you so much. I want to thank both of you for standing up for what is right in this country, for being here to hear our voices. Thank you. Senator Wyden, I agree with you on so many things. I still do not know why you believe that we should not stop the flow of weapons to Israel. How are we going to? I heard your explanation. However, in addition to that, why can we not just stop?
Let me give a response to this person who's asking a good question, and it deserves the best answer I can come up with. I agree with you about the brutality of Gaza. I agree with you about the unacceptable actions of Netanyahu. Where I think we have a difference of opinion is on matters, for example, like Hamas. Hamas, and I'm on the Intelligence Committee, said the first attack was just the beginning, that they were going to kill many others. So what I want to do, and I think it's something that we can find some common ground on, is change the direction of what is going on in these communities. And if we start in with tough sanctions of people who abuse folks in Gaza, I think we send a strong message that no more business as usual. but that may be something that we can get going here fairly quickly and begin to end the suffering in Gaza, which you want, and correctly so, and I want, and penalize the Netanyahu people. I want to do it in a way that will allow Israel to find a path to defend itself. Your question is a good one and a fair one, and I invite you to continue the discussion.
All right, so we have 008 is here. Please identify yourself. No, 008. Oh, there he is. Okay, so this will be time for our last question of the evening. As he comes to the aisle, I'll just go ahead and thank everybody for coming out and participating. We're happy to have you on our campus at Western Oregon University. I personally thank the Congresswoman and the Senator for coming and engaging with us. So after this question, we'll allow them to wrap it up, and thank you all for being here.
I certainly second that, and I do thank you both for being here. My question, I hope you can answer. As my college student daughter and I watch week after week the erosion of common sense, the erosion of human decency, the erosion of the foundations of our representative democracy, what hope can you offer us? That's my simple question.
Great question to wrap up with. The best answer I can give you is I've seen hope all over this room. All over this room. We've been at it for 90 minutes. A lot of people don't agree with me, but there has not been an unfair question in the House. Not one. And it's an indication that people understand that this is a serious time for serious answers. Donald Trump is just the opposite. He nominates unserious people to do an unserious job and waits around until they blow it up. Have you watched what happened to the guy who's heading the IRS, Billy Long? This was the most unqualified person I've ever seen. I mean, it's not differences of opinion. And God only knows what he would have done if we hadn't gotten him out. But the best answer I can give you today to you and your daughter, we spent the last 90 minutes on a gorgeous afternoon, and we talked in a very real way. We're not using teleprompters up here. I know there are plenty of things people don't agree with me on, including the Middle East. But what I'll tell you is I learned something. And this isn't the way government works in much of the country. Much of the country doesn't have town hall meetings. And that's why I just want to close up. You know, when people say, give a speech, Ron, you're the chairman. I'm going to just tell you how grateful I am. You all have, for the last 90 minutes, given the enormous problems we've got, there are going to be serious debates about what to do, have given the government, like John over there, a good name. Thank you for including us in your day.
Thank you for that question. July was rough, I'm not gonna lie. We had a lot of really late nights. I had a couple of agriculture hearings that went just beyond midnight. We had the first round of the reconciliation bill that went into the wee hours of the morning. I was up for, 38, 40 hours, something like that. It was a lot. Then we had to do it all over again because the Senate changed some things, even though Lisa Murkowski didn't quite get what we wanted out of it, and everybody was pointing fingers at each chamber. And the bill was just as bad when it came over again, but same thing, really late night. And then the end of July came, and I got to get on that flight back to Oregon. And as challenging as some of these meetings are at times, and the roundtables that we're holding, and we're hearing from folks who are scared, and I'm going to those rural health clinics, and I'm talking to different providers and doctors and our older Oregonians and all of you, this is what gives me hope. It really does, because you have not lost your willingness to come and share your experience and what's going on. and letting us know if we're doing, you're not doing a good job. This is where I am. And again, we are not going to agree on every issue, but I need this. I need this because when I come to these town halls and I hear from all of you and your spirit is here in this room and you are saying go and fight and do more and make sure we don't have this happen again, this is what gives me hope. So thank you all so much for your time, your effort, and what you contribute to this community. Together, we are going to make the change that we need. Give me till 2026.